Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's favorite example of using modern things in Krishna's service. So if we, further away would be better. More fun. That should be okay. So before Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we have so many illustrious acharyas, and they're all writing within the Vedic context, within the context of the Vedic literature, Vedic culture, all of these things. And they have no discourse with the modern world. And they didn't have to have any discourse with the modern world. But when we come to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is during the British Raj, the British are ruling India, and the people of Bengal are being recruited to the British ideals, British ideas, British standards, customs, clothing, habits, and thinking. And essentially they're being told that their culture is inferior, that these old books are just dusty collections of superstitious tales, many of them immoral, and that, of course, if they want true salvation, then they have to surrender to Jesus and adopt a British way of life. So, and the Bhadralok, the cultivated people of Calcutta especially, were very much influenced by these ideas. Some of them responded to criticism in Vedic culture in different, to criticism of Vedic culture in different ways. Someone starts an organization where we say, now we're getting back to the Vedas, we're getting rid of the Puranas and all of these myths and funny practices. We're just going back to the philosophy of the Upanishads and to the old pure way of doing things. So some go to that route. Others have other routes of trying to compromise or accommodate themselves to British ideas. And some of them just go on with what they were already doing. Of course, what they were already doing may also have been nonsense. By the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the path of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been very much adulterated or even degraded by the Prakrita Sahajas, those who take everything to be cheap. And they invented so many things, including a sort of mixing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's adoration of Radha and Krishna with their own adoration of mundane sex life. And then you stick it together with some philosophy, like the way we use blue tack or something they hold it together somehow. But it's just sex life now, and that too, degraded sex life, under the guise of religious expression, ecstasy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's religious principles had come to be viewed as the business of degraded people. Degraded people. This was a sex religion. Something like Rajneesh was maybe a decade back. You're a sannyasi, but you're sannyasinis, and they have a good time together. And this is all something yoga or what have you. So that was going on. And practically speaking, the real teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been lost. So much so that when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur took an interest in Srimad Bhagavatam, he couldn't even find a copy of what Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was unavailable. He had to go searching high and low to find a copy. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur comes into the middle of this, and the way he describes himself, he was, well, we would say a seeker. He was an educated person, and he was interested, attracted to religious life. So he was looking at Unitarians, he was looking at other thinkers, he was looking at Thoreau, he was looking at this one, he was looking at that one, names we've forgotten. And he's looking for something that has substance, and he's not satisfied. And then he comes upon Srimad Bhagavatam and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he finds that here is the real thing. And he becomes, full, by his own account, then he becomes fully devoted to the path of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's working for the British in their government, but his real business becomes more and more bhajan, service, devotional service to Krishna. And so he presents the science of Krishna. He was already a writer. He'd written some book of poetry, he'd written some things more or less in the mundane, not more or less, in the mundane context. But now his writing becomes all writing about Krishna consciousness. So he writes many books on Jayadvaita, especially prominent commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita and other works. And vigorously preaching Krishna consciousness. He also, of course, he gets a transfer here. He's working for the government, but he's looking to get transferred. Finally, he comes here to Godrondri. And here also he discovers the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by critical study of available maps and correlating what's in the maps with what's in the books. In Chaitanya Bhagavad, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu did this here, and then this there, and then this here, and you get an idea of the distances and where things are, what side of the Ganga, and so on. And he determines that Sri Mayapur is true birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and not the place on the other side, Navadvip, which then was the place represented as Mahaprabhu's birthplace. He writes books, he writes songs. So many songs we have from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which, like the songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, present the essence of the Vedic philosophy in simple and memorable language. Not only the philosophy, but also the taste of Krishna consciousness. Some songs are philosophy, some are simply taste. Not a lot of philosophy, but relish. Relish is there. So sometimes philosophy, sometimes appreciation and taste.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Hare Krishna. No. And everything is presented, in his writings especially, very reasonable, very logical, very sensible, very rational, because that was the competition. The British are all presenting their ideas as scientific and rational and so on and so on. So he has to present everything in a systematic way, and he does. Sometimes he innovates, what is that, Krishna Samhita, where there's some compromise, you can say. It's a discussion of the cosmology of the Bhagavatam, and there's some compromises made to make it reasonable for westernized readers. But he also says in the beginning, of course, I don't accept this, but you can look at it this way. Sometimes we find perhaps some of us who don't really accept the Vedic cosmology, we latch on to Krishna Samhita and say, see, this is it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is what it is. And then we overlook that he said, well, I don't really believe this, but I'm just presenting it, and if it works for you. But he does such things, and presents systematically the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with proper dignity, with proper explanation, systematically, and at the same time distinguishes the true movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the path of the mundane, cheap devotees, the Prakata Sadhus, Al Bhava, Saki Bhakti, Saki Beki, Jai Koshai, and so on. Notably, he also takes on that imposter Bhagavan. Vishaki Sen, is that his name? Vishaki Sen, imitation, the yogi.
That mystic who was coming.
So he was pretending that I'm actually Krishna. And I'm therefore qualified to dance with other men's wives and so on. Otherwise, why go through all this fraud? There has to be some payoff. So that was his real interest.
Bisaksen. Bisaksen.
Vishaksen, yeah. And how to enjoy sex life by becoming Bhagavan. And making a nuisance of himself. More than a nuisance, what would we say? Behaving in a scandalous fashion, so that even the British, and there was mixed also with some seditious ideas, anti-British propaganda. So the British didn't like that, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't like this pseudo-Bhagavan business. So as a magistrate, Bhaktivinoda Thakur went there with the constables and arrested this man. And he even had a popular following. Oh, he's Bhagavan, he's Bhagavan. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur wasn't buying any cheap Bhagavan. He arrested him. And then so many things happened. Bhaktivinoda Thakur came down with a fever. His wife was down with, practically the whole family was it seemed on the verge of death, and people are saying, oh, it's because he's offended Bhagavan. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur persisted. And finally the so-called Bhagavan Wali died in jail. At some point Bhaktivinoda had ordered that this Bhagavan's hair should be cut, because the yogis keep some power by keeping their hair uncut. There was some yogi in the Bible, Samson.
Yes.
As long as his hair wasn't cut, he was powerful. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur defeated him. He set the example also of ideal householder life. We have Rup Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Gopalbhatta Goswami. In this way, 6 Goswamis. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur takes up the life of a householder for serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And still he was called, who was it? That, I think Calcutta journalist. I've suddenly forgotten his name. From Amrita Bashar Patrika. Ghosh. Not Tarankanti. Tarankanti Ghosh was the publisher during Prabhupada's time. Shishkumar Ghosh. Anyway, he termed Bhaktivinoda Thakur as the 7th Goswami. Anashrita karma palam karyam karma karmatiya sasanyas. Grihete vanete Thakur agonam bhalataka. We don't care. Householder, sannyasi, brahmachari, anyone who's fully engaged in the service of Krishna is actually on the transcendental platform. He's the actual sannyasi. He's actually a sannyasi, not a person who just puts on saffron cloth and says, Aham Brahmasmi.
Motilal Ghosh. Shishir Kumar Ghosh.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Shishir Kumar Ghosh. Not Motilal.
I think both of them published together.
Maybe, but Shishir Kumar, I think, was the person. Tarankanti was his descendant. He was very appreciative of Srila Prabhupada. And of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was associating closely with Srila Kishore Babaji Maharaj. Babaji Maharaj used to come here. We were hearing yesterday how he would avoid, Babaji Maharaj would avoid the big sannyasis and so many fraudulent pseudo-transcendentalists. But he would be keen to meet with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One time I asked Srila Prabhupada, let me just think what I asked. I asked Srila Prabhupada how Jagannath Bhaktivinoda Thakur was descended from Jagannath Das Babaji. Prabhupada said he was respecting him as spiritual master. In other words, it's not simply initiation that governs, but the relationship is, in one sense, more important. I have godbrothers, so-called godbrothers, who are initiated by Srila Prabhupada. I was initiated, in fact, with one young man who was a student at, I've told this story, at Brooklyn College in New York. And he was studying religion, so he did two things at once. He did, what do they call, participant observer? He was studying ISKCON and participating at the same time. In 1968. But he was coming regularly, chanting, beads, everything. And then in 1968 he got initiated along with me and two others. And that was the last that was seen of him. He completed his degree, and his purpose was achieved. So that kind of initiation is useless, or worse than useless, fraudulent. And then, of course, there are those who are initiated very sincerely and with great dedication. But in this case, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Gaura Das Babaji. That's what Prabhupada, I'm thinking. I asked how the succession descends from Bhaktivinoda Thakur to Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. And Prabhupada said he was respecting him as spiritual master. He was respecting him as spiritual master. So in this way, the relationship is not always by initiation. Often it is, perhaps most often, but it may also come through instruction, and our line is traced that way. How is the substance transmitted? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in one place that Krishna consciousness is like an electric current passed from one person, communicated from one person to another like electricity.
One sympathetic soul.
One sympathetic soul to another as electricity is conducted. Which doesn't mean like the popular story in which someone zaps his disciple with electric current and the person faints and wakes up and the guru is crying, now all my knowledge is lost. But it means that Krishna consciousness, if the speaker is bona fide and if the hearer is bona fide, sincere, then Krishna consciousness can be transmitted from Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. I don't know that there was any initiation ceremony, but the knowledge was, one was clearly the master, the other accepted in the role of student, and the transmission of knowledge takes place, or the transmission of knowledge and devotion takes place. So in this way, the relationship is there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jagannath Das Babaji, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had his initiating guru also, to whom he always offered respect, but he's not given prominence. The prominence is given to importance is given to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. In his, of course, I mentioned that he took the role of an ideal householder. He had many children. How many? 11. Of whom Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur became the most prominent, and through whom just tell her to stop or we'll kill her.
Where do we get that sound system?
Battle of the sound systems. So as householder, he became the father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in his later life, he entirely stepped back from family affairs. Sometimes devotees who want to hold on to family life till the very fag end will cite the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But first of all, even Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't hold on to family life till the end. He was living apart from family. And he himself wrote that we can't follow the exceptions. We have to follow the rules. I'm trying to remember the examples he gave. He gave 2 examples. Maybe one was Vibhishan, who wasn't initiated. That doesn't mean we shouldn't take initiation. There was another example, but we all know examples. It doesn't mean that because Lord Shiva smokes ganja, we can also, and he's a Param Vaishnava, so we can also smoke ganja. Garuda's not a vegetarian, so we don't have to be vegetarians. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur never gave up family life, so we don't have to give up family life. But first become Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then remain attached to family life. And even he didn't remain. The example from his life is to be entirely attached to Krishna. That's the main thing. Absorbed in devotional service. You've seen his schedule, how 24 hours were used and no time wasted. Abhyartha Kalatvam, that example we have to pick up. How to be always engaged, always thinking about Krishna. And of course, as part of his campaign for spreading Krishna consciousness, he wrote that book, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Life and Precepts. Sent it around to different libraries and different thinkers in the West. And one copy, as we know, was sent to McGill University in Canada, Montreal, and the year of Srila Prabhupada's birth. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is our pioneer of spreading Krishna consciousness in the modern world. When we see the writings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we can understand he's following the teachings he received from his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Sorry, but you were an aggressor.
And we can pick up that example. All right, so are there some questions? Maybe. Yes, Lucy.
Raj, I wanted to clarify, before you come we had a short discussion. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it is known that he saw something from this balcony. What did he see, like the yoga pit, the birthplace, or the TOVP, or is it the TOVP?
Oh, I don't really know. As far as I've read, it's the place where they established the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not TOVP. Otherwise, they would have built the temple there. Of course, when you want to build a temple, then you start saying all sorts of things. But as far as I know, the place was the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Prabhupada sometimes quoted Janma Karma Chame Divyam. He said the karma is more important than the Janma. One who knows the transcendental nature of my birth and activities. So where Chaitanya Mat is and so on, that can be accepted as the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are more vigorously distributed from ISKCON Mayapur. That's where's the Janma. It's the Janma sthan, but it's not the karma sthan. Some, not nothing. They're doing something. But what Prabhupada did far exceeds what everyone else did, even add it all up together. So, all right, that's the Janma place. You don't have to, what's the word, try to co-opt it. No, this is the Janma, where TOVP happened to be placed. Otherwise, they were going to put the TOVP in another part of the property. Then we wouldn't. Oh no, that was the place. But wherever Krishna's activities are going on, that place becomes important. Vrindavan is not the birthplace of Krishna. But which is more important, Mathura or Vrindavan? Mathura, of course, in the absolute sense, there's no difference. Still, although Mathura is the birthplace of Krishna, Vrindavan is the place of his activities, and Vrindavan is more important. So the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there, very holy place, but still more prominent is where the place from which the activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are being glorified all over the world. Is that okay? Yes.
In our CC readings, we got a little breakdown of the purport of Srila Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra. So I was thinking about Pranam Mantras a little more, and it came to my mind when you mentioned Yashamati Nandana being, pleasure. He had philosophical bhajans, but also he's Bhakti Vinod. He was relishing Bhakti. And so I was just wondering if you'd expand maybe on the rest of the Pranam Mantra, or just if there's something you want to highlight in that.
Satchidananda Namane. So Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Not much to say there. Everyone understands the meaning. And Gora Shakti Swarup, directly representing the energy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gora Shakti Swarup. Yes, straightforward mantra. Gora Shakti. And following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, as distinct from the Prakritasajas, Alval, Shakti-Beki, Jat-Goswami, Gauranga-Nagaris, who are not followers of Rupa Goswami. They're followers of something else. Well, those followers are rejected, yes. Yes, Balloon.
I question.
Oh, okay. But yes, the establishing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement means following Srila Rupa Goswami. Rupa Nuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharane. In the next generation, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is rejecting and defeating anything that deviates from the conclusions of Srila Rupa Goswami. Rupa Nuga Viruddha. When it's virud, when it's contrary to the teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami, or the line of devotion service taught by Srila Rupa Goswami, that's abhasiddhanta, and false conclusion, and it's meant to be eradicated. Yes?
This is regarding initiation. You just mentioned that it is necessary that devotees should take initiation, formal initiation, and also there are some exceptions.
Yes.
In the scripture, you give the example of Vibhishan and Parikshit Maharaj, that they heard from Sukadeva Goswami and perfection. So now my question is, nowadays when we go in the preaching field, we face this kind of questions from some newcomers. They say, well, it is not necessary to take initiation, why, your society is teaching so much. So now my question is, who this exception rule is applied, that we can explain to the devotees, especially newcomers, who are being misguided by some members, that initiation is not a must. Anyone can just chant, like Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Jivhaspar se achanda savai, diksha puruscharya vidhi apeksha na kare. So
the holy name doesn't even care about whether you're initiated. That means holy name is independent. Swarat, Krishna is independent. You can't say to Krishna, with your Krishna, this person is not initiated, you can't take him back to Godhead, you can't give him mercy, you can't accept his chanting. I'm sorry, this is Rule 37b, paragraph 4, and Krishna doesn't care. So the holy name is Krishna. He's not bound by these things. He can do what he likes. But the same Krishna, tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasam, shreya uttama. And one should approach surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. Throughout the Shastras, this, what is that? In the beginning, one should surrender to the Adho Gurvashram. One should surrender to the bona fide spiritual master. So all of these things are there again and again. And yet, in some place it's written that no, holy name is not dependent. Prabhupada gave the example that Rabindranath Tagore, the great poet of West Bengal, who also composed the Indian national anthem and great works like Gitanjali and so on, received an honorary degree from Oxford University. So, if anyone wants a degree from Oxford University, you don't have to apply, you don't have to submit tuition, you don't have to do anything. You can just follow Rabindranath Tagore and get an honorary degree. Is that all right? There's a process. If you want to receive an Oxford degree, you apply, you submit your work, you get accepted, you pay your tuition, you sit for the exams, you write your thesis and so on. Not that you say, no, I'll get an honorary degree like Rabindranath Tagore. So Oxford can give. They don't have to follow any custom or convention, but the general principle is you have to follow. So if you like, you can wait for Krishna's mercy to descend, you can just chant on your own and hope. But that's not the recommended path. It's not the path taken by the stalwart acharyas. It's not recommended by Rupa Goswami. But if you like, you can give it a shot. And we'll come back later and see how it's going. Usually it doesn't go very well because the problem is that we're averse to surrender. That's the problem of our conditioned life. Why are we in this material world? We don't want to be subordinate. We don't want to be under someone else's direction. We want to be self-directed, self-sufficient, self-determining, self-everything. And so we don't want to be dependent on, contingent on, beholden to, in servitude of Krishna. And then we carry the same attitude to spiritual life. That I'm not going to surrender to a guru. I'll take something from you. I'll take the best from this, and the best from that, and the best from this, and the best from that. The eclectic path. That way I'll get the best of everything, but that best of everything winds up being nothing. You're looking for medical help, so you go to this doctor, that doctor, that doctor, and you take a little from here, a little from there. This one prescribed this medicine, I like that medicine. Another, I heard good things about this medicine. But you won't follow the doctor's, when he tells you something like you can't eat chili, you'll say, oh no, the other doctor said I can eat chili. So in this way, we become the doctor. There's a Vedic medical text, I forget which one it is, maybe Charak Samhita, where there's a list of people that a Vaidya should refuse to treat. One is a person who's on the very verge of death. There's no use pretending that you're going to give medical treatment to him. And then there's other people, and one person on the list is Vaidyamanina. Just like there's, what is that, Vimuktamanina? A person who thinks that he's liberated, even though he isn't. So Vaidyamanina, a person who thinks he's a doctor. Don't treat a person who thinks he's a doctor. Because he's not going to follow your advice. He knows better than you know. So don't give treatment don't accept as a patient Vaidyaman, a person who thinks he's a doctor. So that's the problem. We think that we don't need a spiritual master. We'll be our own spiritual master. There was maybe it was Abraham Lincoln, the saying is there in America that anyone who's his own lawyer has a fool for a lawyer and a fool for a client. Anyone who's his own lawyer has a fool for a lawyer and a fool for a client. So anyone who wants to be his own guru has a fool for a guru and a fool for a disciple. Is that okay? We have such illustrious persons as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and we want to be Srila Prabhupada, and we want to be our own guru. How foolish is that? Tasma Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasa. Something else? These songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada is very fond of, and we can take advantage of these songs, learn them, and preach from them also. This is a standard method of preaching, to sing something and then explain, and then sing all over India. People, they take this method to quote something and then speak something, then quote something more, or sing something, then explain what we've sung, then sing a little more. Ramayana, typically Tulsidas Ramayana in North India, or whatever it can be, Ramcharitamanas, or any text according to our tradition. So these songs by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we can learn them and we can sing them and discuss and explain also. Sing something, explain something, sing something. And Prabhupada's done that. He's given these songs by Bhaktivinoda Thakur along with purports. Or he's quoted in his lectures Bhaktivinoda Thakur explaining. So there's so much wealth there. Some of the songs are above our heads, that we should know also. Srila Prabhupada wrote to Achyutananda Prabhu, the original compiler of the first ISKCON Vaishnava songbook, that the very high songs we should not include in the book. He said Jayadvaita Swami, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to sing or used to relish verses by Jayadeva Goswami, Chandidas, along with Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar Goswami. This is all recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But these things are not generally for us. Prabhupada said these are for the Paramahansa devotees, and we're practicing devotees. He said, but you can include Jayadeva Goswami, you can include the Dasavatar Stotra, the song to the 10 incarnations, that you can have. So we have to be aware what is our level of adhikar, our level of qualification, and also what is the level of qualification of the audience. I remember one time I was at an engagement and there was a devotee, my god sister in fact, and she was speaking very nicely, Krishna Katha, and at some point it went way up there to all sorts of not so intimate things, but a lot of the technical things having to do with our relationship with Krishna on the advanced platform. And the gathering was mostly a gathering young people in the devotee community. And after the program, some of the young people drove me back to where I was staying. And as soon as we were in the car, they were talking about soccer matches and,
Tennis.
ordinary things. They weren't going back and reviewing all of these deep understandings of Krishna and Krishna's energies and all of these things. Soccer and ordinary affairs. So for that kind of audience, we don't need to delve deep into the tattva of Radha Krishna Lila and all these things. First we need to understand that we're not this body, that life is meant for spiritual realization, not for enjoyment of our senses. We need to understand the difference between matter and spirit. We need to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and we're all His servants. So some discrimination is needed on our part. What is meant for us and what is meant for those on a higher platform of devotional service. And we do well not to overestimate our own qualifications. Something else? Okay. Shall we? Yes?
So Bhaktivinoda had many children.
Mm.
Not all of them were like very much engaged in the mission.
No.
So we can see nowadays also in our communities, many times there's a lot of expectation put on the kids. And then because of that, they kind of like bounce away from it.
Sometimes in our communities, lots of expectations are put on the kids that they'll be great preachers or something, and they bounce away from it. Well, now we were talking about levels of qualification for understanding advanced topics. You've just exceeded my level of qualification. Child rearing is not my forte.
For all your children, Lord.
That's a different, but ready-made. Yeah, I really haven't. It's not for me to comment on all of these things. There are devotees who have experience and qualification and realizations from.
I have something that you said on the matter.
Oh, you have something to say?
Yeah. We were on bus tour, and you said that these devotee kids, if you see them as devotees, you might be disappointed. But if you see them as prospective devotees, they're vegetarian, they love kirtan, they hang out with devotees. So if you see them as prospective devotees, then it's a very fertile preaching ground.
Yeah, I did say that. So I guess I'll accept it on authority. But yes, that's true. If we went preaching in college someplace and we found a pocket of young people who loved the Maha Mantra, just were totally into prasadam, thought that Krishna is the only person that's eligible to be God, who and so on and so on. We'd think, well, these are great prospects. It's amazing. And if you look at them from the other side, these are devotee kids. Well, why is he wearing a beard, or whatever it is that we, why isn't he shaved up, or this, that, and everything. So yes, if we see, it helps if we see these young people as prospects. Kadambakanda Maharaj also commented, you did something wrong in your previous life, that's why you're still here. If we did it all right last time, we wouldn't be around. So from that point of view, some shortcoming is there. We're still here, but there's some background. Punya Shuchinam Shimatan Gehe Yoga Brashto Vijayate Dava Yoginam Eva Kule Bhakti Dina. Those who've practiced devotional service in previous lives can come back in this life and with some advantage, become family of devotees. So that opportunity is a great opportunity for them. And we should see them as, yes, people who are favored. They should be protected, they should be encouraged. But everyone has to, in one sense, discover it for themselves. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks that way of his own life, how he portrays himself as having materialistic tendencies or materialistic habits. But then he discovers Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement and takes to it fully. So of course, our young people have already discovered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, but that discovery by birth is different from discovery by realization. So they should be given the opportunity to discover Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement.
They're about to have Aarti.
Yes.
I was going to suggest maybe we go to Surabhi Kunj and do some Bhaktivinoda Thakur bhajans.
Do you want